Hey, so today we're going to talk about how to get grants. What are the steps you need to take before you pursue grants? Let's get into it. Hey y'all, this is Tiffany with Boss on the Budget. I help new and small nonprofits get up and running, and today we're going to talk about what you need to do before you start writing for grants. Like, how do you get started? Where do you go? What do you do first, right? Before you start writing. Because I find that a lot of people struggle with understanding the grants process and they get intimidated by it. So here are some preliminary steps that I suggest you do before you start writing. First, you got to understand, what program are you trying to cover? Because most grants that you're going to encounter are not going to cover all of your services. They're not going to cover all of your operation expenses. So you need to ask yourself, which programs do we want to be covered by grants and by how much? And what are those expenses? What are the types of expenses that we need covered? Because that matters as well. If you need staffing covered, well, you may come across a grant that doesn't allow the money to be used on staffing. They may only want it to be used on materials. Or you may want to cover some of your admin, but there may be a cap on how much money you can use for admin. So it's really important for you to know for yourself first what you need to spend the money on and what are the specific expenses that need to be covered so you can make sure you find the right grant. Then you got to ask yourself, how much are we trying to raise? How much do we need to be covered by grants? So many people miss this step. They just immediately go to, I need money, I need money. And then a lot of times when I ask them, okay, well, how much do you need or how much are you looking for? I get blank stares because people have not asked themselves the question, how much do we need? How much are we trying to really raise? That matters, y'all, because if you know you're trying to raise $25,000, that gives a signal to you, okay, well, I want to try and get at least $50,000. I want to try to at least apply for $75,000. If I know that a probability of us winning is 25%, then I need to write as many grants, right, that's over that to make 25%. So if I need to make, for example, if I need to cover $25,000, I may try to apply for $100,000 in grants, hoping that the probability is 25% that I'll get something, right? I hope that makes sense to y'all. But you have to kind of have a strategy behind it and don't just pick and choose grants. Oh, I found one for 10 and I found one for 15 and we're good. That's really not how it's going to work. So you need to ask yourself, how much do we want to raise and how many grants do we need to write, or what's our strategy around getting that amount so you're not wasting time. The next thing I suggest you do is identify the particular keywords that you're looking for when you're looking for grants. So the keywords could be around the population that you're working with. So it could be women, it could be children, it could be veterans. It could also be around your activities. So you may do after school work, you may do work in education, you may have a mental health program. But you also want to think about your outcomes. So you want to make sure you have an expansive search, right? So think about your outcomes. What are you trying to accomplish? Is it that you're trying to have positive physical health outcomes? Do you want to improve the mental health? Do you want to improve graduation rate, or do you want to improve, career advancement and things like that? So for example, if you have an arts program, you may just think, okay, I'm looking for arts programs. Where are all the grants for arts programs? But your arts program may be helping young people deal with trauma. It may be helping with mindfulness activities. There are particular outcomes as a result of the arts program. You may be helping young people get to college through the art that you're doing with your program. So instead of just searching for art programs, you may be searching for college prep grants, you may be searching for education grants, all of that, because you don't want to box yourself in. So I suggest in this step, ask yourself, what are the different keywords or what are the different areas that I need to search in so that when I'm looking for grants, I'm keeping my net as wide as possible. The next thing I suggest you do is build a prospect list. Okay, so never assume that all of the grants that you write, you're going to win. So you need to have a long list of potential funders that you're going to be reaching out to that may be a good fit. And by building this list, you begin to understand what their interests are, what their own missions are, what they fund, how much they fund, who they typically fund, because it can help you figure out, okay, is this a good fit? Is this worth our time to apply? So when you go about grants and you're just finding like a random grant here and there, I don't think that's very efficient, and it's difficult to figure out whether or not you're hitting your mark or you're hitting your goals. So by having a prospect list, you can identify, okay, these are all the funders that we potentially want to go after. And then as you start whittling down, it can begin to be clearer for you, okay, this wasn't a good fit because of this, or we need to pursue this because of this. Another reason why you want to have a prospect list is because you want to identify who are the people associated with these foundations or with these different funders, because you may want to identify any connections you have to those funders. So when you have everything on paper in black and white, it can help you see this funder is in New York. Who do I know in the New York space who may be attached to this funder, or may have worked with this funder, or may have received funding from this funder? And you go down the list. You ask yourself, what are the potential connections that we can make as a result of the information that we have about this funder? So a prospect list is really your key database of important information to help you figure out how to approach a funder, to help you figure out what your strategy overall will be for filling out or replying to a grant. And the last thing I suggest you do before you start writing is to build a relationship with your funder. Now, this is the long game. I'm just going to tell you that your attempts to reach out to a funder or to get in front of a funder may be futile in the beginning. You may try, they may not respond, and it's a thing that you have to work on over time. But if you spend your time on important funders, in particular funders who are either big in your space or they're just your dream funder, you know it would be a really good fit for you to work with them. If you identify who those funders are and you work on them, you work on it for years, and you build relationships, you get to know who works for them, you get to know the organizations they fund, you start designing activities to get in front of them. You join boards and committees that they're on, that their staff are on. You do all of the work to get in front of them. It works. It pays off in the end. But even if you don't want to play that long game, building a relationship could be reaching out to them and asking them if it's a good fit. It could be reaching out to them and saying, what are you working on? What strategies are you doing? What are ways we can help and support your work? A relationship goes a long way. And again, not every funder will respond, but for the ones that do, that amount of effort that you put into it will be worth it. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. Those are strategies you can do to get ready for grants before you start writing, so you can get yourself organized and together when it's time to writing. If you need help, you can always visit me at www.bossonabudget.com, and I will see you in the next video.